She appeared to me as an amber-colored ball of light, but I knew it was her. I could feel her energy, her presence. She was scared, and I could tell she wasn't ready to leave. Welcome to Dark Reddit, your late-night escape into eerie calm. I'm Alex, your voice in the dark and your guide through the unknown. This is podcast 29, 2 hours descent into whispered stories and sleepless stillness. Tonight, we drift through chilling tales unearthed from Reddit's darker corners. Stories of strangers, shadows, and things that don't stay buried. Before we begin, find a quiet place. Dim the lights. Take one deep breath and close your eyes. You don't need to watch. You only need to listen. You're safe here. Let the night begin. This story begins with a gift from above. But some gifts are heavier than others. It all started in 2023, a year that would change my life in ways I never expected. I had been carrying the weight of trauma since the age of 4, an event so intense that it led to a near-death experience, NDE. The scars, both physical and emotional, had been with me all my life, but I kept praying, seeking peace, hoping that one day I would find some resolution. It wasn't until the night of my son's 3rd birthday that the answer finally came, in the form of a vision that would leave me questioning everything I thought I knew. I had been listening to a gospel song late into the night, a song about Mary Magdalene. The soft chords filled the room, and as I sat there, the most incredible vision unfolded before me. I saw Jesus, his hands reaching out to my soul, gently bringing it back into my body at the exact moment of that traumatic event. I felt a warmth, a sense of peace I had never experienced. It was as if everything I had carried, every ounce of pain, was being washed away. And then came the second part, the unexpected gift from the Holy Spirit. It wasn't something I had asked for, nor was I prepared for it. But in that moment, I realized that I had been given a unique ability, a gift to help souls transition to the other side. It wasn't a gift that came with clear instructions or easy answers. I still struggle with it, and at times I feel overwhelmed by it. But I've learned to accept that this is part of my journey, even if I don't fully understand why it was given to me. The first spirit I encountered after receiving the gift was a woman named Bonnie. She had lived in our house long before we did, back in the 1800s, when the house was just beginning to settle into the quiet hills. Bonnie had been an indentured servant, her life one of hardship and quiet suffering. For 6 months after the vision, I could hear her thoughts in my mind, her voice soft and faint, like a whisper carried by the wind. And then one night I saw her next to my bed. She appeared to me as an amber-colored ball of light, but I knew it was her. I could feel her energy, her presence. She was scared, and I could tell she wasn't ready to leave. But I sang a Christian song to her, one I had learned long ago, and in that moment, she seemed to relax. Her fear melted away, and with a final, peaceful farewell, she left. She went to heaven, and I never heard from her again. I thought that would be the end of it, that my gift had been fulfilled. But the next day, something shifted. Something, or rather someone else, arrived. This spirit was different. It wasn't someone who had lived in our house, nor was it someone who had found peace. No, This was a spirit who seemed lost, angry, and confused. His name was Timothy, a young boy who had died in 1972 at the age of 15. His death had been tragic. He had taken his own life, overwhelmed by the abuse he had suffered at the hands of his stepfather. Timothy was the class clown, always making people laugh, always the life of the party. But behind that facade, no one knew the darkness he carried. No one knew the pain that had driven him to that devastating decision. I first heard Timothy in my thoughts. It wasn't clear at first. He didn't speak in words, but rather in jumbled thoughts that interjected into my own. It was as if his voice was invading my mind, pulling my attention away from my own thoughts. I could feel him, but I didn't fully understand what was happening. Then I began to see him, though not in the way you might expect. He didn't appear as a fully formed figure. Instead, he was like a wave of distortion in the air, a heat mirage that would flicker at the edge of my vision. It was unsettling, to say the least. But over time, I learned more about him. Timothy, it seemed, wasn't looking for peace. He was searching for something, but I couldn't tell what. He would often interrupt my thoughts, making it seem like his ideas were my own, as if he were trying to manipulate my mind. It felt like I was being bullied by him, even though he never spoke outright. It was the subtlety of it, the way he made me question my own thoughts, that unnerved me the most. Sometimes he would come to me at night, appearing at the edge of my bed. I'd wake up and see an outline of his body, distorted like the heat waves rising off a hot surface. At first, I was too frightened to acknowledge him. But one night, I couldn't help myself. When I saw his outline, I screamed his name, as if calling him out from the shadows. In that moment, my bedroom door creaked open by itself, halfway, as if to confirm his presence. I could feel his energy, his anger, his pain, and I knew that he wasn't ready to cross over. The hardest part of this experience is not knowing what to do with it. Most people, even those closest to me, my therapist, my husband, my mother, think it's a mental health issue. They try to be supportive, but they don't understand the isolation I feel. It's difficult to explain how it feels to never truly be alone in your own thoughts, to have voices from the other side constantly interrupting your mind. It's not just hearing them, it's feeling them, knowing they're there, even when they're not physically present. I pray every day for peace. I pray for guidance, for understanding, and for strength. I remind myself that this gift is from God, even if it doesn't always feel like a blessing. But there are moments when I wonder if I'm truly helping, or if I'm just being used as a vessel for something I don't fully comprehend. And yet, even with all the fear and uncertainty, I still try to help those spirits who need it. I may not have all the answers, but I know that this is part of my journey. I don't know why I was given this gift, but I trust that it is meant to be. I trust that somehow it will make sense one day. Until then, I continue to pray and wait for the day when the voices grow silent, when the spirits find their way home. This story is about a 5-year-old boy, a knight in shining armor, and an experience that stayed with him for a lifetime, one that he believes might have saved him from something far darker. When I think back to 1988, I remember a lot of things that were perfectly ordinary for a young child. Playing with toys, running around outside, and having those simple, magical moments that only kids seem to truly understand. But there's one thing, one experience, that stands out like nothing else from that time. I was just 5 years old at the time, and I have never forgotten it. In fact, my brother, who was only a year younger, remembers it too as clearly as I do, even though we both were so young. It's an experience we still talk about to this day, and I can't help but feel that there's something almost sacred about it. It started quietly, almost innocently. I would wake up in the middle of the night, not because of any loud noise or external disturbance, but because I just woke up. The house was quiet, the darkness outside was thick, and yet something felt different. In those early moments, I would lay in my bed, unsure of what I was seeing. At first, it was subtle, a figure standing beside my bed. But it wasn't just any figure. It was majestic, a translucent, tall being clad in armor that looked like something straight out of a fairy tale or epic legend. It was so real, and yet it felt like I was seeing something from another realm, something that didn't belong in my room or this world. His armor gleamed in the dim light filtering in through the windows. It was silver and pristine, glowing softly with a power I couldn't understand, and he stood so still, so calm, as if he was waiting. His helmet was unique, almost samurai-like, though I didn't know what a samurai was back then. It had a mystic shape, and the crest on the top seemed to shimmer, almost like it was alive. I remember being so scared at first, staring wide-eyed at this figure, unsure if I was dreaming. I had no idea who he was, why he was there, or what he wanted. I never saw his face, though I couldn't take my eyes off him. His eyes were hidden behind the visor of his helmet, and the more I stared, the more I realized I couldn't see anything of him beneath that helmet. No face, no expression, just pure, unwavering presence. But here's the strange part. Despite the fear that gripped me in those moments, there was an underlying peace in the air. It was as if this being was not here to harm me, but to protect me. And I didn't understand it at the time, but in hindsight, it makes so much sense. I had no idea that the feeling of calm, the absence of any malice, was a type of divine protection. Night after night, he would appear, always in the same place, always in the same posture, standing guard beside my bed, silent and stoic, like a knight watching over a sleeping king. He never moved. He never made a sound. There was no communication between us, but his presence was enough to calm me. I eventually stopped being afraid of him. In fact, I found myself waiting for his visits, though I never asked for them. Felt natural, like this was the way things were supposed to be. But there was one night that changed everything. My brother and I had been sleeping in the same room for a while, and we both woke up at the same time. There, in the same spot where he had always been, stood the knight. This time, though, it wasn't just me seeing him. My brother saw him too. The same tall, majestic figure, standing beside my bed, still and silent. He looked just as I remembered. His armor, the helmet, the sword, everything about him was as clear as day. We both saw him at the same time, and to this day we still remember the details vividly, as if it were just yesterday. The sword gleamed in his hand, and the armor, while looking ancient, seemed timeless. But the one thing we both remember the most is the sense of divinity, a sense of greatness radiating from him. He didn't seem like an ordinary being. No, he felt exalted, almost heavenly. We couldn't see his face, but we didn't need to. The feeling of his presence was enough. The peace that came with him was enough to make us both feel safe and protected. We never felt fear, never once. In fact, the experience was so beautiful that we still talk about it as something sacred, something that shaped both of our childhoods and, in a way, our entire outlook on life. As we grew older, the memory of the night stayed with us, and the meaning of his visit began to take on new layers. I'm in my 40s now, and I still think about him. I've come to believe that he wasn't just some random figure in a dream. No, he was more than that. He wasn't just a guardian in the traditional sense. I believe he was a divine protector, sent to keep us safe from something we didn't understand. Perhaps there was something darker lurking, waiting to invade our dreams or our minds. Maybe the night was there to guard us from something malevolent. Maybe he was a spiritual guardian, standing between us and an evil we could never see. The way he stood, so noble and resolute, made me think of the armor of salvation, the helmet of salvation, and the sword of the Spirit, symbols of divine protection that are meant to shield our hearts and minds from harm. I wonder if we were being protected from an attack we could never comprehend at the time. I can't shake the feeling that this being was no mere apparition, but something far more profound, some sort of celestial guardian. And even though I never saw his face, I know without a doubt that he was watching over us, me and my brother. The memory of his visits is etched deeply in our minds, like a sacred part of our childhood that we can never erase. So, what do I think about that experience now, so many years later? Was it a guardian angel, a spiritual protector, or just some fantastical figure of childhood imagination? I'm not sure, but I do know this. I've never had a more peaceful and beautiful experience in my life. Even now, as I reflect on it, I feel a sense of gratitude, a sense of awe. I don't know if I'll ever truly understand why it happened, but I know it was meant to be something special, something far more than just a dream or a fleeting moment. Has anyone else experienced something like this? I would love to hear your stories. This story is about the spine-chilling legacy of one of America's most haunted houses. Nestled in Old Town San Diego, the Whaley House stands as a grand and timeless piece of history. But beneath its warm red brick facade and historical charm lies something far more unnerving. Built in 1856 by Thomas Whaley, a successful businessman from New York, the house was intended to be a symbol of prosperity. Instead, it became a vessel for ghost stories, whispers in the night, and strange happenings that continue to mystify visitors and staff to this day. Victor Santana, the operations manager of the Whaley House Museum, has heard it all. From disembodied voices and heavy footsteps to sudden wafts of perfume, and the chilling cries of a woman in the dead of night, Santana has spent years navigating the house's haunted reputation. The land on which the Whaley House stands has a grim past. Before the home was constructed, it served as the site of San Diego's public gallows, a place where criminals met their end beneath a hangman's noose. One of the most infamous was Yankee Jim Robinson, executed for stealing a boat. According to legend, Thomas Whaley himself witnessed Robinson's hanging. Whether from guilt, fate, or bad luck, the energy of that event seems to have lingered. Whaley would later report hearing heavy bootsteps on the stairs and unexplained male grunts echoing through his office. He believed it was the spirit of Yankee Jim, pacing through the home in eternal unrest. But Yankee Jim isn't the only ghost rumored to haunt the property. After Thomas Whaley passed away, he too is said to have joined the ranks of spectral residents. Visitors claim to have seen a man at the top of the staircase, peering down with an unreadable expression. Others have noted the unmistakable scent of cigars, Thomas's favorite, wafting through rooms where no smoke should be. Then there are the more delicate hauntings, the floral scent of lavender, thought to be from Anna Whaley, Thomas's wife, whose presence is said to linger in the parlor. Guests report sudden chills, gentle touches on their arms, and even soft, feminine sobbing heard late at night. And it doesn't stop there. The Whaley family's beloved pets also appear to have stayed behind. Santana recounts visitors describing the feeling of a small dog brushing past their legs, or the sensation of being licked by an unseen animal. Though Santana himself has never seen a ghost with his own eyes, he doesn't dismiss the experiences of others. He once watched a doll seemingly move on its own and has heard unexplained crying echo through the empty house when no one else was around. The most convincing evidence, he says, came during a late-night paranormal investigation. Using an EVP recorder, the team asked the usual round of questions. Is anyone here with us? Do you want to talk to us? Then came the question, are you happy we are here with you tonight? When they played the recording back, a voice, clear, deliberate, and unmistakably not one of the living, responded, no. Chills ran through the room. Santana remembers how everyone fell silent. The Whaley house doesn't rely on jump scares or over-the-top theatrics to send a shiver down your spine. The fear it evokes is more profound. A quiet tension that hangs in the air. A sense that you're never really alone. And for some, like Santana, it's this subtle, lingering eeriness that makes the Whaley house so compelling. Tourists still flock to the site, drawn by its haunted reputation and curious to experience the paranormal for themselves. Some leave laughing, others leave rattled. But almost everyone leaves changed, carrying with them a story they can't quite explain. Perhaps that's the true power of the Whaley house. It reminds us that history isn't just something we read about. Sometimes it lingers, sometimes it watches, and sometimes it speaks. As Santana often says with a knowing smile, you don't have to believe in ghosts to feel something here. Just come spend the night. See for yourself. I was a rookie cop when my older brother died. Suicide. He was one of my older siblings, but we were close. The kind of close where you don't talk every day, but there's a thread, a quiet loyalty that ties you together stronger than words. His death hit me harder than I let on. He was in another state, so I hadn't seen him in a while, and in hindsight, I beat myself up with questions. How did I not see it coming? Why didn't I check in more? The guilt was like a second skin. His remains were in bad shape by the time they found him. It was a closed coffin service. I flew back, stood by my family, tried to be strong, tried to keep my badge face on. But I felt like I'd failed in a way that ran deeper than law enforcement ever could. A week after the funeral, I was back on patrol. Nights in a rough part of town. My partner and I were cruising down a dim street known for its nightly offerings of vice and violence when we saw it happen. A pimp pistol whipping one of his girls. No hesitation. We hit the lights, jump out, and the guy bolts. I give chase. He's fast, lean, and he knows the area. He cuts through alleys, dodging trash bins and loose chain-link gates, then dives into a narrow corridor that tunnels under an old building. I follow without thinking, adrenaline drowning out caution. Gun in hand. Tunnel leads to a courtyard in the center of the complex. And right before I clear that corridor, just as I'm about to enter the open, I hear a voice. It's okay. But not just any voice. It was my brother's. Clear, calm, unmistakable. In that split second, everything slowed. My foot hit the courtyard gravel, and standing maybe 10 feet away, the suspect was crouched low, his back to the wall, pointing a pistol straight at my head. Before I could react, I saw the flash of metal. He squeezed the trigger once, then again. Click, click, no bang. I froze, not out of fear, but because something unnatural had just happened. My body hesitated, like it was trying to catch up with reality. Then instinct took over. I closed the distance and brought my revolver down hard across his skull. Again and again, until he was down and out. I cuffed him, sat there for a moment trying to get my breath, and eventually dragged him back toward the street to meet my partner, who was looping around the other side. "You good?" he asked, eyebrows raised. "Yeah," I said, still panting. He tried to shoot me, pulled the trigger twice. We called it in, took the guy's .32 revolver. I told my partner about the gun, but not about the voice. That part one kept to myself. Back at the station, we unloaded the weapon. 6 bullets in the cylinder. 2 had clear strike marks on the primer caps. The hammer had fallen on them. I felt a chill start crawling up my spine. We sent the revolver and ammo to the lab for testing. A couple days later, I walked into the ballistics lab and asked the tech if he could do me a favor. I told him the story, everything but the voice again, just the part about the suspect pulling the trigger and nothing happening. He gave me a look. "Bad ammo maybe," he said, "but let's see." He took the 2 rounds with visible strike marks, loaded them into a test gun, and fired them into the tank. Bang, bang. Both rounds went off. Clean. No misfires. He looked at me, puzzled. "These rounds are good. Clean strikes. No reason they shouldn't have fired in the first place." I didn't say much. I just nodded, thanked him, and walked out. But inside, my thoughts were racing. I know what I heard. I know the sound of my brother's voice. It wasn't memory. It wasn't emotion. It wasn't me cracking under pressure or the echo of grief talking. It was real. Just 3 words. "It's okay." And I think it was him. I think he stopped those bullets. It's not something I say out loud. I mean, who's going to believe that? A ghost intervened in a shootout? Sounds like a made-for-TV movie. But that moment, in the middle of that courtyard, staring down the barrel of a gun, someone, gave me a second chance. I sometimes wonder what would have happened if those bullets fired like they should have. Best case? I'm wearing a badge and a coffin. Worst case? I don't go home at all. But they didn't fire. And I'm still here. I've had years to think about it since. I've seen a lot of things on the job, evil, pain, the thin threads people hang on to when the world goes dark. I've stood over bodies and behind yellow tape, questioned monsters and comforted mothers. But nothing has ever rattled me the way that moment did. There's a lot we don't understand about this world, and maybe that's okay. Maybe some things aren't meant to be explained. Maybe they're meant to be felt, to be carried. Every once in a while, when I'm in a tough spot, whether it's on the job or just in life, I still hear it in the back of my mind. It's okay, and somehow I believe it. This story is about the kind of silence that makes your ears ring, the kind of stillness that feels watched. It's about footsteps that don't belong to anyone you know, and the tension of waiting for something to show itself, but hoping it never does. There's a certain kind of horror that creeps up on you when the world outside is already a little off. The skies are gray, The wind is picking up, and the rain won't stop tapping the windows. The air smells like salt and electricity. The atmosphere already feels haunted before anything actually happens. This was Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, during Hurricane Debbie. My whole extended family had rented out this cream-colored, two-story beach house perched on stilts like most of the others in the complex. The kind of place that looked like it hadn't been updated since the 90s. Faded paint, worn-out wood floors, furniture that had weathered too many storms and too many renters. It was charming in that we're here for a good time, not a long time sort of way. As the storm slowly crept closer, everyone was trying to squeeze out the last bit of vacation before it became a full-on washout. People went out to shop, explore, or do anything but sit in the damp, moody house. Everyone, that is, except me and my husband. We decided to kill a rainy afternoon by roasting a truly terrible horror movie, Jeepers Creepers 3. And no, we weren't brave, just bored. Also, 1 out of 10 don't watch it sober. So there we were, curled up on the couch in the dimly lit living room on the first floor, the storm humming in the background like a moody orchestra. As the movie clunked along, I started hearing it. Creak. Just a single, loud creak. From above. The unmistakable sound of a wood floor adjusting under pressure. But this one didn't sound random. It was too sharp, too exact. I hit pause on the movie. "Did you hear that?" I asked my husband. He shrugged. "Hear what?" I shook my head. "Nothing. Never mind." A few more scenes in, and then creak, 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 this time unmistakably footsteps. Not fast, but deliberate. Heavy, dragging footsteps coming from the hallway upstairs. Like someone was pacing slowly, turning in a circle, then pausing near the top of the stairs. It was rhythmic, repetitive. I muted the movie. "You have to hear that," I whispered. My husband blinked at me. "Hear what? You're freaking yourself out." "No, I swear to God, listen." And then we both sat there, completely silent. The kind of silence where even the storm outside seemed to hold its breath. Creak. This time, even he heard it. His posture straightened instantly, like someone had just tugged on an invisible string in his spine. "That's not the house settling," I said, already getting off the couch. I did a quick check of the house. Every bedroom? Empty. Every bathroom? Empty. The kitchen, the garage, the laundry room? No one. And the kicker? I had watched every family member leave earlier that day. Our beach house was designed in such a way that everyone had to pass through the living room to get out. I saw them go, one by one. So who the hell was upstairs? The footsteps never made it down. They just stayed circling the landing at the top of the staircase, like someone trying to decide whether or not to come down, or maybe just waiting for something. It lasted maybe 4 minutes total, but it felt like an hour. And then, just like that, it stopped. No more creaking, no more pacing, just the soft whirring of the ceiling fan above us and the steady patter of the rain outside. We didn't finish Jeepers Creepers 3. I couldn't focus anymore, and frankly, the movie was already doing a bad job of holding our attention. That tension, that unease, just sat in my chest like a stone. It never boiled over into full panic, but it stayed with me for the rest of the trip. No one else experienced anything that week. No flickering lights, no shadows, no cold spots, but I never felt easy in that house again. Every creak made me stop. Every floorboard groan made me flinch. It's strange how your body remembers fear. Even now, writing this, I can feel the goosebumps rise just thinking about those steps. Circling, pausing, waiting. It wasn't my first paranormal encounter. I've had another in my life, But this one was different. There was no ghostly figure, no whispering voice, no slamming doors. It was subtle, measured. It didn't want to scare me. It wanted me to notice it, and I did. What scares me the most in hindsight is the feeling that it knew we were alone, that it chose that moment, that precise afternoon, when everyone else was gone and the world outside was already growing darker. Like it was waiting for quiet, like it was waiting just for me. Ever since then, I've wondered, what if I had gone upstairs? What if I'd tried to catch whatever it was in the act? Would I have found an empty hallway? Or would I have seen something that changed everything? I don't have the answer, but I do know this. I've never been so relieved to leave a vacation home in my life. And next time someone says they heard footsteps in an empty house, I'll believe them. Now, let's hear what happened when curiosity led to fear. It all started after my friend passed away, and I had to attend the funeral. It was a heartbreaking day, but one that we all go through, paying our respects and grieving. The funeral was tough, but after it was over, I tried to go back to some semblance of normalcy. My mom, however, who's a bit on the superstitious side, gave me one of her usual requests. She called to tell me to take a bath before going to bed that night, as she always does whenever there's been a death. Her reasoning is that it's to wash away any bad energy or lingering spirits that may have attached themselves to you. At first, I always thought it was just one of her quirky traditions, a way of dealing with grief and the unknown. But that night, after the funeral, things started happening that made me question it all. The following evening, I was in my room, just relaxing on the bed, thinking about everything that had just transpired. The room was quiet, and the atmosphere was heavy, with that lingering sadness that tends to sit in the air after a funeral. My mom called again around 6 or 7 p.m. to check on me. She was upset, though, more than usual, ranting about how I shouldn't have gone to the funeral at all. I couldn't understand why she was so adamant about it, but she was firm in her words, saying there was something wrong about the whole situation. I let her talk, though, because, well, that's what she did. As she was speaking, something incredibly strange happened. My door, which I was sure had been left open, slammed shut all of a sudden. The sound was loud, and I immediately jumped. I thought at first it was the wind, some draft pushing it closed, but when I glanced over, I realized my windows were tightly shut. The air was still, not a single gust of wind, so there was no logical explanation for what had just happened. I mentioned the door slamming to my mom, but as I did, the phone line began cutting out. It was as if the connection was being disrupted. The sound of her voice became muffled, and there was a weird static that filled the space between us. I could still hear her faintly, but she couldn't hear me properly, no matter how many times I tried to speak. It was as if something was interfering with the call. I remember sitting there, staring at my phone, trying to get the call to clear up, but it was futile. I could hear her on the other end, but it felt like the distance between us had somehow expanded. There was this eerie, almost suffocating silence between the static. My mom was telling me that she could barely hear me, and I kept asking her if she was okay, wondering why the call kept cutting out. I couldn't explain it, and I could tell she was unnerved too, but she didn't want to panic me. Once the call finally dropped entirely, I sat there for a few moments, frozen. That feeling of something being off didn't go away. The door slamming, the static-filled phone call, the oddness of it all. It felt wrong. I got up and walked around the room, trying to shake the unease, but the feeling lingered. The next night, things started getting even stranger. I was just sitting in my room again, doing my usual thing, when I noticed the light flicker on its own. It wasn't a usual flicker like a light bulb going bad. It was as if the light had just decided to turn on for no reason. I figured maybe it was just a random glitch with the electrical wiring, but then it happened again a few minutes later. It was like the light had a mind of its own, and that sense of something not quite right, that eerie vibe, just grew stronger. Then, a couple of days after that, another odd occurrence. My phone's volume randomly turned itself down, and I was left sitting there, wondering how the volume had lowered. I had been using it earlier and hadn't touched the volume buttons, but somehow, it had just adjusted itself. At first, I told myself it was just a technical glitch, but deep down, I knew it didn't feel like a coincidence anymore. All these little things were starting to add up, and it was becoming harder to brush them off as mere technical issues. I kept all of this to myself for a while, but it was really starting to bug me. Was I imagining it all? Was there something going on with the electronics? But then I realized that everything seemed to be happening right after the funeral, and it felt like more than just strange coincidences. There was this feeling of energy in the air that I couldn't shake. One night, as I was lying in bed, trying to rationalize what was going on, I found myself getting more and more unsettled. The events of the last few days replayed in my mind, and I thought back to how my mom had insisted I shouldn't have gone to the funeral. Maybe she was right. Maybe there was something to her superstitions, something I hadn't taken seriously enough before. After all, the door slamming shut on its own, the weird phone call, the electrical oddities, none of it seemed easily explained. I called my mom again to tell her what had been happening, and she listened, sounding worried. She asked me if I felt like something was with me, and it hit me that I hadn't really felt alone at all during all of this. There was this presence, a sense of being watched, like something unseen was lingering just out of view. I felt it, but I couldn't name it. It wasn't a feeling of fear exactly, but more like a warning, like something was trying to make itself known. I'm not sure what to make of it all, to be honest. On the one hand, I could convince myself it was all just a series of strange coincidences, technical problems, and my mind playing tricks on me. But on the other hand, the timing right after the funeral, and the events that seemed to coincide with it, make me wonder if there's something more to it. So I'm reaching out here, hoping someone can offer a bit of insight. Has anyone else experienced strange occurrences like this after a funeral or a major loss? Could it be something as simple as stress manifesting in odd ways, or could there be something more supernatural at play? I'm still trying to figure it out, but it's hard to ignore the strange coincidences and the unsettling feeling that's been following me around since that night. This story is about the kind of silence that makes your ears ring, the kind of stillness that feels watched. It's about footsteps that don't belong to anyone you know, and the tension of waiting for something to show itself, but hoping it never does. There's a certain kind of horror that creeps up on you when the world outside is already a little off. The skies are gray, the wind is picking up, and the rain won't stop tapping the windows. The air smells like salt and electricity. The atmosphere already feels haunted before anything actually happens. This was Myrtle Beach, South Carolina during Hurricane Debbie. My whole extended family had rented out this cream-colored, two-story beach house perched on stilts like most of the others in the complex. The kind of place that looked like it hadn't been updated since the 90s. Faded paint, worn-out wood floors, furniture that had weathered too many storms and too many renters. It was charming in that we're here for a good time, not a long time sort of way. As the storm slowly crept closer, Everyone was trying to squeeze out the last bit of vacation before it became a full-on washout. People went out to shop, explore, or do anything but sit in the damp, moody house. Everyone, that is, except me and my husband. We decided to kill a rainy afternoon by roasting a truly terrible horror movie, Jeepers Creepers 3. And no, we weren't brave, just bored. Also, 1 out of 10 don't watch it sober. So there we were, curled up on the couch in the dimly lit living room on the first floor, the storm humming in the background like a moody orchestra. As the movie clunked along, I started hearing it. Creak. Just a single, loud creak. From above. The unmistakable sound of a wood floor adjusting under pressure. But this one didn't sound random. It was too sharp, too exact. I hit pause on the movie. "Did you hear that?" I asked my husband. He shrugged. "Hear what?" I shook my head. "Nothing. Never mind." A few more scenes in, and then creak, 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 this time unmistakably footsteps. Not fast, but deliberate. Heavy, dragging footsteps coming from the hallway upstairs. Like someone was pacing slowly, turning in a circle, then pausing near the top of the stairs. It was rhythmic, repetitive. I muted the movie. "You have to hear that," I whispered. My husband blinked at me. "Hear what? You're freaking yourself out." "No, I swear to God, listen." And then we both sat there, completely silent. The kind of silence where even the storm outside seemed to hold its breath. Creak. This time, even he heard it. His posture straightened instantly, like someone had just tugged on an invisible string in his spine. "That's not the house settling," I said, already getting off the couch. I did a quick check of the house. Every bedroom? Empty. Every bathroom? Empty. The kitchen, the garage, the laundry room? No one. And the kicker? I had watched every family member leave earlier that day. Our beach house was designed in such a way that everyone had to pass through the living room to get out. I saw them go, one by one. So who the hell was upstairs? The footsteps never made it down. They just stayed circling the landing at the top of the staircase, like someone trying to decide whether or not to come down, or maybe just waiting for something. It lasted maybe 4 minutes total, but it felt like an hour. And then, just like that, it stopped. No more creaking, no more pacing, just the soft whirring of the ceiling fan above us and the steady patter of the rain outside. We didn't finish Jeepers Creepers 3. I couldn't focus anymore, and frankly, the movie was already doing a bad job of holding our attention. That tension, that unease, just sat in my chest like a stone. It never boiled over into full panic, but it stayed with me for the rest of the trip. No one else experienced anything that week. No flickering lights, no shadows, no cold spots, but I never felt easy in that house again. Every creak made me stop. Every floorboard groan made me flinch. It's strange how your body remembers fear. Even now, writing this, I can feel the goosebumps rise just thinking about those steps. Circling, pausing, waiting. It wasn't my first paranormal encounter. I've had another in my life, but this one was different. There was no ghostly figure, no whispering voice, no slamming doors. It was subtle, measured. It didn't want to scare me. It wanted me to notice it, and I did. What scares me the most, in hindsight, is the feeling that it knew we were alone. That it chose that moment, that precise afternoon, when everyone else was gone and the world outside was already growing darker. Like it was waiting for quiet. Like it was waiting just for me. Ever since then, I've wondered, what if I had gone upstairs? What if I'd tried to catch whatever it was in the act? Would I have found an empty hallway? Or would I have seen something that changed everything? I don't have the answer, but I do know this. I've never been so relieved to leave a vacation home in my life. And next time someone says they heard footsteps in an empty house, I'll believe them. Our next story comes from someone who didn't believe in the paranormal until one night at their grandparents' house. I've always considered myself a rational person. I don't believe in ghosts, spirits, or anything supernatural. But there's one thing I've never been able to explain, and it happened in my grandparents' house. A place notorious for its hauntings, even included in a haunted houses tour in the Los Angeles area. People swore it was cursed, full of restless souls, but I always shrugged it off, assuming it was just the stuff of local legends. I was about 6 years old when it happened, and at that time I didn't really have much reason to fear. My sister, who was 12, and I shared a room at my grandparents' house. It wasn't a huge room, but there was something comforting about it, like an old, familiar embrace. My mom had decorated our bedside table with an antique telephone. It wasn't plugged in, didn't work at all, and was nothing more than a decorative piece that my mom loved. A nod to a simpler time. That night, everything seemed normal at first. My sister and I were asleep, wrapped in our own little worlds. But then, for some reason, we both woke up at exactly the same time. It wasn't the kind of waking up you get from a loud noise or an uncomfortable position. No, it was different. We both just opened our eyes, almost as if we were meant to wake up together. We turned to face each other in the dark, but there was something in the air that instantly made me feel uneasy. It wasn't just the usual stirrings of waking up in the night. It was dread, pure and palpable, like a weight pressing down on my chest. For a moment, we just stared at each other, the silence thick and suffocating. And then it happened, the phone rang. The sound pierced the night, sharp and sudden, and I felt my heart race. It wasn't a normal phone ring, though. It was hollow, distant, as if the sound came from nowhere and everywhere at once. The antique phone sitting on the bedside table, the one that wasn't plugged in, was ringing. I remember the chill that washed over me. My sister's face mirrored the panic I was feeling. Without saying a word, we both immediately dove under our blankets, hoping that if we just hid long enough, it would go away. The phone continued to ring, but it didn't sound like any phone I'd ever heard before. The noise was grating, unsettling, like it didn't belong. We waited in the dark, holding our breath, frozen under the covers until the ringing finally stopped. Silence filled the room once again, but it was a different kind of silence. It wasn't the peaceful quiet of the night. It was heavy, tense, like something had just passed through the room but left an impression we couldn't quite shake. The next morning, I didn't say anything about it to my sister. I convinced myself that I had imagined it, that maybe I had dreamed the whole thing. After all, it was a weird dream, right? That's what I told myself. But then, a few years later, my sister and I were talking about old memories, as siblings often do. Somehow, we got to talking about strange things that had happened in that room, and she mentioned the ringing phone. My heart skipped a beat. "You remember the phone ringing that night?" she asked, almost as if it was an afterthought. I froze. My mind raced. I hadn't mentioned it to her at all, not once in all the years that had passed. But she remembered it, too. We both had the exact same experience. The same phone ringing in the middle of the night. The same feeling of dread that overtook us. The same terrified silence as we hid under the blankets. We hadn't spoken about it before, yet here we were, confirming each other's memories as if the event had been imprinted in our minds, undeniable and shared. We both knew that we hadn't imagined it. Something happened that night, something that neither of us could explain. And even though we never talked about it again after that, I could still hear the faint ring of the phone in my mind whenever I thought back to that night. There are many more stories from my grandparents' house, too many to recount here. The place was full of strange occurrences. Doors that would creak open by themselves, shadows that moved just out of sight, cold drafts that seemed to appear out of nowhere. But that one, the ringing phone, was the one I couldn't shake. The one that stuck with me even though I didn't believe in the paranormal. As an adult, I still don't know what to believe. I don't think of myself as someone who's particularly open to supernatural explanations, but there are moments when I remember the phone ringing, and I wonder if that house really was haunted. Maybe there's more to this world than we can understand, or maybe some things just can't be explained. But whatever it was that night, the feeling of dread, the sound of that unearthly ring, will stay with me forever. And every time I pass an old antique telephone, I can't help but think about it, wondering if I'll ever find the answers to the strange events that unfolded in that house so many years ago. You've made it through the hour. The stories are over now, and the night is quiet again. Let the silence soothe you. Whatever followed you from the tales, leave it here. You're safe, you're calm, and you're already drifting deeper into rest. If you enjoyed these stories, consider subscribing to Dark Reddit for more nightly chills. Until next time, sleep well.